My bones had been pinned down by the soul-stabilizing pearl for 13 years, my spirit bored to the point of dissipating when I met the true daughter cast out by the Marquis's mansion. She lay atop my skeleton, tears streaming down her face. I want to die and you want to live. Let's swap. I never imagined that, as a mere lingering soul, I could still be seen by anyone, let alone that the one who could see me was the lost true daughter of the Marquis's mansion. Half a year ago, when the mansion brought her back, their carriage passed by this patch of land of mine and stopped under the peach tree nourished by my remains. The impatient old maid, clutching her backside, darted into the bushes to relieve herself. A person was left behind in the carriage, Meng Jin, the daughter the Marquis's mansion had reclaimed. When her tiny, palm-sized face met my gaze, it instantly turned deathly pale. I died in a sorry state. Zhuke, that bitch, gouged out my eyes, slashed to ribbons that lotus blossom face that had made Shin Chong infatuated, and even my hands, which had wielded a blade so skillfully, were brutally severed and tossed into the fish pond of the prince's rear courtyard. My bones were nailed in this mass grave. I was bored to death. Every day, I hung upside down from the crooked peach tree like a swing. As the ghostly wind blew, my bloody had happened to land right in front of Meng Jin. Her big, jet-black eyes were wide open. My invisible blood dripped right onto them. I bared my fangs and blew a breath into her face, saying, "Give me a sniff of your dry rations, and I'll spare your life." She fumbled for a long time before pulling out 2 cold steamed buns. Disappointed, I said, "You're giving me leftovers? I want something good, like that." I stretched out my long tongue, pointing at the pork jerky in the hands of the servant and the groom. She followed my gaze, then looked embarrassed. Her fan-like eyelashes drooped, and her voice was as faint as a mosquito's hum. "I haven't yet been acknowledged by my clan. The brave Marquis Manor doesn't support idle people. My dry rations are ones I brought myself." My 3-foot-long tongue paused, then slowly retracted. The Marquis's household was vast and wealthy. Even the buns thrown to the dogs were finer than the ones in her hands. Over a decade ago, I saw that adopted daughter at a palace banquet, decked in gold and jade like a celestial child, almost outshining the imperial princesses. Back then, the lady of the Marquis's manor would weep in public when speaking of her lost daughter, finding solace that kept me from counting the days in misery. But in just a dozen years, she had forgotten and neglected her own birth daughter to such a state. For those unloved, even a mother cannot spare the time to fetch her child home. I was merely lying atop a tree, lamenting the fickleness of the world, when Meng Jin softened her heart and handed this to you. Summoning her courage, she begged the coachman for half a gnawed piece of dried meat, holding it up, too timid to even lift her head. "Don't cry, I've thought of a way for you." I was startled, only to realize that blood was again trickling from my hollow eye sockets. I didn't. Smack before I could finish, the old maid's ruler swung through my head and struck her hand. A young lady must observe the rules of a young lady. The Marquis's household is a family of honor and privilege. How can you accept food given in contempt? A single piece of dried meat has made you lose all face for the Marquis's estate. Lowly and despicable. You deserve punishment. The dried meat fell to the ground, stained with dust, and the servants and grooms trampled it. Standing with hands on hips beside the old maids, they made sarcastic remarks. "With such conduct, you're not even as good as the bamboo in the young lady's courtyard. And you call yourself a young lady? If it weren't for the marriage alliance needing a pawn, who would want to take you in?" The Marquis and his wife went to see her 5 years ago. They found her illiterate and unrefined, so they didn't want her. Putting on the airs of a young lady. Have you looked at your own background? An orphan raised scrubbing manure buckets. You can never wash off the stench of filth. Meng Jin clenched her sleeves, too ashamed to raise her head. But the three grew even more smug, spewing a string of malicious words, all insults and mockery. The constant discipline from the old maid's ruler, and the gloating laughter of the groom and servant, so noisy. I am reminded again of those days of killing. Have you ever seen a human flesh swing? The teary-eyed Meng Jin was startled. "Today you'll see it." I flicked out my long tongue, wrapped the old maid up onto the peach tree, a fork-like branch clamped around her neck. I blew a breath. She began swinging back and forth, squeaking. "Want it faster?" Meng Jin was stunned. The old maid was choking to death. The groom and the servant boy yelled and ran to help. I cackled. Want to see a flaming chariot? The groom and the servant boy were tangled in the branches, spinning like crazy. They screamed hysterically, piss and shit flying everywhere. Amidst cries of "Mommy, Daddy," they rolled their eyes one by one. The little girl was scared at first, then she laughed. An incense stick later, the three unconscious people lay neatly on the ground, all soiled. Who could compare in glory? Meng Jin and I held dried meat and feasted. What's your name? I'm going back to the capital to earn money to perform your funeral rites. My name, she can't afford to touch it. Besides, I can't perform rites either. It's been hit by the soul-calming pearl. Don't waste your effort. Furthermore, I didn't say. Furthermore, I'm about to scatter into nothingness. Just say they were strangled by a ghost. Looking like this, even they will only dare to say they might have seen a ghost in broad daylight. I hung myself back on the tree, determined to live well. After all, what I want most is to live and make those bastards suffer in hell. She paused for a moment. You like the smell of meat? I'll come see you next time. I'll bring you roast chicken. When she left, she promised solemnly to bring me roast chicken the next time she visited. But once she left, half a year passed. I know about the soul-suppressing pearl. If you want freedom, you can only trade one life for another. I deliberately went to the Hugua temple to get a talisman. If you nod, I'll give you my life. Thunder rumbled, illuminating Meng Jin's pale face, so different from her lively self half a year ago. She was breathing faintly, collapsed under my peach tree, without any strength left. I didn't forget you. I just couldn't get out. No roast chicken, don't blame me. Look, even in death, I'm still thinking of you. She only wished to die. Why, anywhere else. But it was 30 li from the capital to here, and she trudged through the mud for an entire night. Who pushed you to this? The Meng family. She smiled grimly. Her face was streaked with rain or tears, impossible to tell. The next moment, a sharp dagger sliced open her wrist. It's the times. It's me being foolish, weak, and inferior to others. This is my fate. Blood gushed out. It clung to the damp talisman she held close to her chest, gleaming with golden light. Come here, come give me a hug. You're the only one who ever protected me. Oh, you don't have hands. Then I'll hold you. No matter how much I wanted to save her. It was nothing but futile attempts time and again. I want to die. You want to live. Let's trade, I beg you. When a person wants to die, others cannot save them. She tore the wound deeper, fresh blood washed away by the rain, streaming down. My entire skeleton was stained with blood. Living has already been so painful. Don't let me die with my eyes open. At least if you live, someone will still remember me, right? Her 3 souls and 7 spirits slowly drifted out, growing fainter. With only a breath left, I approached her. What wish do you have? I'll fulfill it for you. I'll do anything for you. She smiled and hugged me tightly, burying her face deep in my arms. You must live well. I'll be reborn into a good family in my next life. Then we'll both have come out ahead. Have we come out ahead? Unless you drag everyone down with you, it's just a wrongful death. That night, the Marquis' estate lost a true-born daughter no one cared about, but in the mass grave, a ghost Rakshasa was resurrected. The peach tree withered overnight. I carried Meng Jin's body down the mountain. I don't know about the next life, but in this life, I will demand blood for blood. Before returning to the capital, I visited the Hugua temple. There, a dowager empress who had taken a lifelong vegetarian vow to pray for her son resided. She had never liked me before, and when she made me kneel as punishment, I miscarried my 8-month-old child. But now, after I told her the truth about her son's death, she was eager to board my sinking ship, to stir up storms with me, and fight our way back to the Forbidden City. The deal was struck, and on the day of the Marquis' daughter's coming-of-age ceremony, I returned to the Marquis' mansion. Amidst the hall full of joy, everyone gathered around the fake daughter, Meng Shueru. Rare treasures fit for a noble lady were piled before her like they cost nothing. Everyone congratulated her on growing up, urging her to be cautious in word and deed, not to ruin her future. Amidst the splendid scene, there was nothing but life's triumph, yet no one remembered that today was also Meng Jin's birthday. The Marquis' wife pulled the charming fake daughter into her arms, with a dozen large boxes neatly stacked in front of her. These are from your grandmother's dowry. Your mother only got her hands on them after your brother was born. I won't give them to anyone else, only to my ruler. Meng Shui pouted and threw herself into the arms of the Marquis's wife, revealing a naive yet sly smile, knowing that mother loves me best. How deeply I adore mother. The heir of the Marquis's mansion, Meng Yun, stepped forward with a gentle expression, offering his treasure, mother's heirloom. Brother doesn't have one like this. Only this 5-colored agate, bestowed by the emperor, which brother managed to obtain from the third prince. Its significance is naturally quite different. The third prince, ranked third, it is indeed him. An unexpected delight. The Marquis on the high seat stroked his beard with smug satisfaction. Father's gift is no less inferior. I brazenly begged His Majesty to grant an early betrothal for you and the third prince after your coming-of-age ceremony, so that my precious pearl may have her wish fulfilled. Meng Shui's eyes immediately lit up, but she didn't forget to stomp her foot at the Marquis, saying, "Father, how embarrassing. Saying such things in front of everyone. I'm ignoring you." The crowd burst into laughter. All the words were drenched in honeyed sweetness, but inside my body, there remained the hidden wounds of Meng Jin's touch, aching at the slightest contact. As the cold wind blew, the chill penetrated to the bone, and I couldn't help but shiver. You know what shame is? I thought you were used to being shameless. Big brother, you're so mean. Mother, scold him. All right, I'll scold him now. Yun Tang, stop bullying your sister. As punishment, take her shopping tomorrow and pay for everything. Meng Yun complained loudly, "Mother, you're making things difficult for me. You know perfectly well that my little savings have all been spent on that little glutton." Meng Shui stuck out her tongue and made a face. "Serves you right. Walla walla. And what about me?" The whole room burst into laughter. I walked out, ruining the mood. What about me? The laughter stopped abruptly. Everyone's face showed displeasure at being interrupted. Meng Yun shot me a cold sideways glance. "So you finally came back. I thought you had some pride. You couldn't make it out there, so you slunk back in disgrace, huh? Do you know that Shuiru hasn't been able to eat or sleep for days? Worried sick because you ran away? Running off to elope with someone. How shameless. You've brought shame upon the entire Marquis's household." Meng Shuiru was startled to see me return, but quickly hid the flicker of hatred. Biting her lip, her innocent eyes brimmed with tears. She tugged at Meng Yunting's sleeve and said, pitifully, "Brother, don't say that. I no longer blame sister. Although she drove me out of the manor and nearly cost me my life, I have enjoyed the wealth and honor of the Marquis's estate for so many years, so I am content. I suppose the elopement was also instigated by someone else. Now sister must have realized her mistake." Then she looked at me with an expression of genuine concern and said, "Since sister has returned, I think I should return everything of yours to you. But sister, these past days you left without a word, causing father and mother great worry. Don't forget to apologize to them." Lady Meng glared at me fiercely and sneered, "I cannot accept that. Last time I apologized to you, you pushed me into the water. If you apologize to me, I might end up losing my old life as well. Besides, this mother has only one daughter, and that is you, Shuiru. Don't flatter me with someone else." Meng Shuiru blinked her big eyes at me with a troubled expression. "Sister, quickly admit your mistake." Seeing me unmoved, the Marquis roared coldly, "Kneel down at once." I stood still, but my body instinctively ached with sadness and heartache. That was Meng Jin. Even though her soul was gone, her body still grieved. Staring straight at them, I gave them one last chance. What she had, shouldn't I have as well? "You dare compare yourself to Shuiru?" Meng Yun roared in fury. "A country bumpkin with no manners, you've disgraced the Marquis's mansion time and again. If not for Shuiru protecting you, you'd have died 1,000 times over. Eloped? Who told you that?" Meng Shuiru, feigning innocence and confusion, walked toward me step by step, saying, "Sister, don't be afraid. Since you're back, your family will naturally clean up after you. I've already destroyed that letter for you. As long as you admit your mistake before father and mother, you'll still be the eldest miss in the Marquis's mansion, and our family will remain harmonious. Look at your sister. Even now she's still speaking up for you, yet you're so ungrateful, framing her again and again. No wonder I favor her more. Tell me yourself, in what way are you her equal? Your mother is right. If you weren't our own flesh and blood, I would have thrown this worthless mud out to the manor long ago. Father and mother are just too soft-hearted. A calamity like her doesn't deserve to be a descendant of the Meng family. Don't say that anymore, you'll make her sad. Meng Shueru affectionately linked her arm through mine. Her gaze turned cold as her sharp nails dug into my skin. Don't you think so, sister? She prepared to be shaken off by me in pain and fall gracefully. But I didn't even move, frozen in place. Clenching her teeth in resentment, she hissed at me in a low voice. You've really improved. Bravo, you cheap slut. Why didn't you die out there? That such a lowly trick could drive Meng Jin to death left me speechless. So, the rumor about me eloping with someone came from your mouth. A flicker of disdain passed through her eyes. Yet her face was full of grievance. Are you blaming me, sister? I didn't mean to. With a crack, I casually dislocated her jaw. Good, you admitted it. No need to say more. Too fast. By the time she covered her chin and started whimpering in fear, the others finally reacted, and suddenly everyone rushed forward to subdue me. But her nanny, who had charged ahead for her, hadn't even gotten close before I kicked her thigh bone and broke it, leaving her lying on the ground, only able to scream. At the same time, my dagger pressed against Meng Shueru's neck, whose acupoints were sealed. Try moving. Perhaps my tone was too mild, making them think I didn't have the guts, so they still tried to lunge forward. Slash. With a flick of my wrist, a finger-long wound appeared on Meng Shueru's cheek. Blood dripped. Ah, it hurts so much. Father, mother, brother. Ruer hurts so much. Ruer's face is ruined. Ru. She screamed again, but didn't dare to continue. After I sliced off her bloody ear with one slash and stomped it under my foot, her previous arrogance turned into a face full of cowering and terror. I forced everyone back behind the marquee, and only then did I step on Meng Shueru's nanny, who was rolling on the ground. Tell me, who drove your master out of the mansion, and how did she fall into the water? Though drenched in sweat from pain, she still insisted stubbornly. Even if the eldest miss kills me, this old servant can only speak the truth. It was you who couldn't tolerate Second Miss, and when you failed to kill her, you drove her out of the mansion. Second Miss was nearly abducted by bandits, and now she still has injuries on her leg. Yet she's a stubborn one, isn't she? Interesting. Just as she lifted her foot, Mother Meng cried out, Ungrateful daughter. Are you going to rebel against heaven? If it's just a gift you want, I'll give it to you. How dare you hurt my Ruer? I will never acknowledge you in this life, nor will I want anything from you. She was really noisy. Meng Jin, it really hurts. With a clatter, as I tore off Meng Shueru's eardrop, it struck straight onto Madame Meng's hair crown. One had her only good ear torn, while the other, the mistress who prided herself on dignity, had disheveled hair and a pale face, completely losing her composure. Next time, I'll hit your eyes. Eyes but no vision, keeping them is useless. Mother Meng fell to the ground in terror, not daring to speak again. The others, having witnessed my methods, dared not act rashly. I gave you a chance, but you didn't treasure it, so don't blame me. The blade tip landed on Nanny Wu's wrist. With a flick of force, her tendons were severed. Not telling the truth. She didn't dare to answer. She only screamed desperately. I rubbed my numb ears, then struck again, plunging the blade straight into the tip of her heart and lungs, even deliberately twisting the handle. It wouldn't kill her, but the pain would make life worse than death. The blood flowing out formed a small river, terrifying the others into stillness. In those years, I fought alongside Shin Chong, searching for information for him. I had studied many torture methods in the dungeon. Using them today on a backyard old maid seemed like overkill, but methods don't need to be sophisticated. Useful is enough. Sure enough, with just 2 cuts, Nanny Wu was in so much pain she wet herself. Just as she was about to speak, Meng Yun cried out, What do you want? We'll give it to you. Is it Shueru's courtyard? Or to be acknowledged by the family, or the 3rd prince's marriage? Put down the knife and we'll discuss slowly. Don't cause a death, or even your brother won't be able to help you. He talked endlessly, interrupting my interrogation. A nameless rage shot to the top of my head. Come here, I'll tell you what I want. He hesitated repeatedly, but under Meng Shueru's tears, he still came over. You. Before the knife behind him was even drawn, I grabbed him by the neck and slapped him a dozen times, crackling across his face. I threw him hard to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood with teeth, then passed out, and the knife slid from behind him. That's for being too talkative, a fool not worth pitying. The Marquis met my smiling eyes, trembling with hatred, but for the lives of his children, he had to swallow his anger and grit his teeth. He ordered, "Listen to her. No one move." I curved my lips at him with satisfaction, while patting the cold dagger against Mama Wu's face. "Speak." She was no longer stubborn. She poured out like beans the grievances and persecutions suffered by Meng Jin. The young lady who returned from the countryside was never favored by her family. On her first day back at the mansion, because she made the fake young lady cry, she was locked in the smallest courtyard to learn rules. Later, she broke the fake young lady's imperial jewelry. She burned down the courtyard out of spite with her family, and even pushed the fake daughter into the lake out of jealousy that the fake daughter had won the third prince's favor. In the end, she used the true daughter's identity to expel the fake daughter from the Marquis's mansion. If the Marquis's mansion hadn't searched in time, that fake daughter would have been ruined by bandits. A scar the size of a fingernail was left on her leg, and then the entire Marquis's mansion expelled the true daughter from the mansion as a lesson. But she eloped with someone in a fit of anger. It was all the young lady knew. It was all orchestrated by the second Mississippi. She couldn't stand being overshadowed by the first miss because of that blood relation, so she wanted the first miss dead. From beginning to end, it was all the second miss's scheme. The first miss had never done a single evil thing. When the first miss was locked in the ancestral hall, the second miss took over the task of delivering meals, but never sent a single meal. For an entire month, the first miss survived by eating the servants' leftover soup. The birthday gift the first miss prepared for the madam was a safety pouch she sewed stitch by stitch, not that clod of dirt that the second miss swapped it for. The master's medicine for his cold was also brewed by the first miss, watching over the stove. But she was stopped when entering the study, so the second miss added laxatives to the tea and framed the eldest Mississippi. As for the prince's painting, the eldest miss only glanced at it. She never touched it. It was the second miss, taking advantage of her unrestricted access to the study, who destroyed it herself. Confined to her room, kneeling in the ancestral hall, beaten, even cast out to fend for herself, Meng Jin had suffered so much injustice in her own home, she who had never known love. She returned to her home with a heart full of hope, only to discover that the love she yearned for but could never obtain had long been enjoyed by someone else. And those who should have loved her, protected her, and cherished her, her own flesh and blood, gave her nothing but overwhelming hatred and malice. Abandoned, loathed, even expelled and crushed by her own family, how helpless she must have felt. I sighed and continued to ask, "And what about the story of her elopement?" Nanny Wu trembled and said fearfully, "The eldest miss never eloped with anyone. Because of the second miss's runaway, the master and mistress drove the eldest miss out of the Marquis's mansion, intending to make her understand how difficult life is for a woman without the favor of her family. The second miss had long since bribed bandits to defile and kill the eldest miss in the outskirts of the capital. As for the letter, it was naturally written by Tsueju, who excelled at calligraphy imitation. As I locked my eyes on Tsueju coldly among the crowd, she was terrified. Before the knife even rose, she fell to her knees with a thud in front of me, corroborating every word Nanny Wu had said, and even adding many details. Finally, she kowtowed like a pestle pounding garlic. It was the second miss who forced me. As servants, how would we dare to disobey? "Please spare my life, eldest Mississippi. Please spare my life, eldest Mississippi. You see, when you hold the knife in your own hands, everyone will submit to you." Meng Jin. The problem was you lacked a knife. Meng Shueru's crimes were practically nailed down. Take Meng Shueru away. Apply heavy torture. Who would dare? The servant I had deliberately let go brought back the furious third prince, Shin Yuchen. How to put it? He was far less intelligent than Shin Chong, and even his looks didn't inherit a fraction of his mother's charm. As a child, he had a hint of cuteness, but now every aspect of him was detestable. How dare you still look at this prince, Meng Jin? You are utterly despicable. Holding the nearly broken Meng Shueru, surrounded by guards, he keeps shouting at me endlessly, severely injuring a court official and my fiancé, Meng Jin. I think you've lost your mind and are asking for death. Guards, arrest this wicked wretch and send her to the Supreme Court for severe punishment. Oh, you're arresting their daughter in the Marquis's mansion. Did you ask for their consent? Even knowing all the truth, even knowing all the grievances Meng Jin had suffered, yet all the Meng family, when faced with the third prince's attack on their poor daughter and sister, still chose to remain silent. The daughter's grievances, how could they be more important than the Marquis's wealth and future? Meng Jin, they are not worth it. I've given them a chance. Now, they will reap what they sow. The third prince laughed, his arrogant demeanor exactly like that person. This prince says you are not the Meng family's daughter. Who would dare to say you are? The Marquis lowered his eyes, looking indifferent as if it had nothing to do with him. The Marquis hesitated to speak for a long time, then finally closed her mouth. Only Meng Yun Tang, covered in wounds, said viciously, "Kill her. I only have Shuiru as my sister." The third prince looked at me with an expression that said, "See? No one's backing you." He looked down on me from above. "You thought that by harming Shuiru, you could marry me? Dream on. Now, the Meng family has disowned you, and I will make your life worse than death to atone for Shuiru. If you know what's good for you, kill yourself in front of Shuiru, and I might spare your corpse intact." I gasped. The third prince, pretending to be her knight in shining armor, knew the truth perfectly well. Yet he still chose to disregard the law and drive me to death. He gave a cold snort and replied disdainfully, "When did Shuiru ever scheme against you? It's always been you, running wild in the Marquis's household and killing people at will. Shuiru only tried to stop your madness, and you ruined her face. Master Meng tried to persuade you to reform, and you knocked his teeth out. The truth is just this and nothing more." He could openly twist black into white like this in front of everyone. I felt relieved. Seeing me smile inexplicably, he waved his hand. "Guards, send her to the Grand Court. Tell the Chief Justice exactly what I said. Order him to interrogate her harshly." I'm afraid that's not within my power. The Chief Justice of the Dali Temple stepped out from the shadows, but unfortunately for them, he stood on my side. I smiled, icy cold. "Sorry, but I'm investigating on imperial decree. All of you here who twisted the truth to put me to death will be thrown into the dungeon. You're something else, using my blade to kill my son." Emperor Xinchong had abandoned the third prince, who was kneeling endlessly outside the Hall of Mental Cultivation, to come and question me. All because I wanted to vent my anger. He had actually dragged down his own son. Now Xinchong was much more placid, a different man from the sharp, deep-thinking, hard-handed emperor of the past. Back then, he couldn't tolerate a grain of sand in his eye. Now he only wanted peace in the court and the harem, endlessly muddling through matters. I wasn't satisfied, so I leaned back on the lounge chair and squinted in the sun without giving him a single glance. Deadlocked, he reached out and rubbed my cheek. "Oh, your temperament is more and more like hers." When the emperor saw the empress dowager at Hugua Temple, the consort Ru he fell in love with at first sight, that was me. Consort Ru, the consort who fulfilled his wishes. How ridiculous. I had become my own stand-in. After all, no one would ever guess that the current Meng Jin was Yun Tang, Xinchong's long-dead white moonlight. I imitated myself, and I could be as much like myself as I wanted. So when Xinchong was knocked off his horse by my sword, and I stepped on his shoulder blade, about to snap his neck, he saw in my blade and in my expression the shadow of an old acquaintance. He wanted to make me, the arrogant one, his consort Ru. The condition I proposed was that he kill the fake daughter for me and exact revenge. He no longer had the ruthlessness of before and was unwilling to meddle in the affairs of ministers' households, so he merely assigned the Chief Justice of the Court of Judicial Review and the eunuch Director Wu to me. Whether I could bring the villains to justice depended entirely on my own methods. In extraordinary times, tough measures were necessary. This was proposed by Xinchong himself when he was 18. So I chose bloody torture and forced confessions. With the Chief Justice present in person and the airtight evidence, they all confessed. But then the third prince jumped out, wanting to risk everything for his lady, making me a wronged ghost. Xinchong wanted to protect his son, but I was determined to vent my anger. We were at a stalemate. In his childhood, he nearly died of illness, and the empress doted on him excessively, spoiling him so much that he has no sense of his limits. So disappointing to me, I sneered. Those words, so disappointing, were all it took. Xinchong's face showed displeasure, but I stubbornly raised my head and met his gaze without flinching. Teasing with aggressive provocation, that was the expression he had personally told Yun Tang was his favorite. Forced back by this look, he was about to speak when Her Majesty the Empress arrived. My eyes lit up. Zhu Huan, long time no see. I had carefully plotted to bring down the third prince, just to give you a welcome gift. She still held herself like the virtuous and dignified daughter of a noble house, just as before. Only when she saw me and my knife did the corner of her eye twitch, but she knelt before Xinqiang without looking aside. The third prince is young and could not withstand the instigation and framing by villains, so he was momentarily blinded by anger. And did this foolish thing. I failed in my duty as the empress and raised a fool. I cannot escape blame. I remove my crown to beg forgiveness. I request to enter the cold palace to accept punishment. The matron beside her quickly knelt down. Her Majesty is unwell. As soon as she could get out of bed, she brought the third prince to offer a humble apology. Your Majesty, forgive us. The Empress cannot enter the cold palace. If the central palace is implicated, this touched the very foundation of the dynasty. Not to mention anything else, the Zhu clan, veterans of 3 reigns, would not let it go, and in the court, disputes would be unavoidable. And Xinqiang, what he hated most were those old codgers in court endlessly bickering. Zhu Huan, just like when she was younger, loved to use indirect means to achieve her goals. But she was thinking too wishfully. Nanny, aren't you talking a bit too much? At His Majesty's side, is there a place for you to speak? Both Nanny Li and the Empress turned pale. But I shot Xinqiang a glare. Find me a mouthpiece too. From now on, let others say the unpleasant words. I only say what you like to hear. Is it worth it? The Empress's act of playing both good and bad cop was exposed, and her dignified smile froze on her face. The meddlesome nanny was dragged out by Eunuch Wu, and the sound of slaps rang out. Zhu Huan's face froze over. Her hatred swept across my face, but I didn't care. I kicked Xinqiang's leg under the table. Who is the villain?
Me?
Or that damned fake heiress? Not willing to punish the son, then punish the fake daughter instead. Settling for the next best thing is good for everyone. Xinqiang understood my concession, and his gloomy face instantly melted like spring snow. You are my beloved consort. If you were to become a villain, then wouldn't I be a fatuous ruler? The Empress means that the Meng girl is vicious and cunning, having taken advantage of my son. And she even tried to kill my beloved consort, an unforgivable crime. I will punish her. Father, no. I curled my lips. The fool has arrived. It was Shun Yuchen, kneeling outside the courtyard with a birch branch on his back, begging for punishment. Upon hearing that Meng Xueru was to be punished, he actually barged into my inner chamber, utterly lacking etiquette, stupidly foolish, playing right into my hands. How dare you? Zhu Huan delivered a sharp slap across the third prince's face. If I don't punish her severely, who knows how far you might be seduced by this villainess. She was already a calamity who deceived His Majesty by substituting one person for another, and she nearly cost Consort Ru her life. Grant her a pot of poison wine. That would be giving her a dignified end. The Emperor saved face for his son by pushing Meng Xueru forward to take the blow. The Empress was naturally happy to see it happen and went along with it, taking Meng Xueru's life. Having saved his own son, the ungrateful third prince actually knelt down directly and said, Mother Empress, your son's heart is devoted to Xueru. She is pure and good, definitely not someone who does evil. As he spoke, he glanced at me. His voice dropped 3 notches. It's just that she was framed. Now her face is ruined. How pitiful. Mother Empress, as the rightful empress, you should stand up for such a pitiful, weak woman. Xinqiang closed his eyes deeply. Zhu Huan was so furious, she wished she could faint on the spot. I took the initiative to help her out of the predicament. If the third prince doesn't believe it, let him personally go through the process of the grand court, then he'll know. Better to let the Meng girl die knowing the truth, so we might as well interrogate thoroughly. Zhu Huan panicked. The grand court's process, it's all bloody and mangled. If Meng Xueru is sent in, that would be a fate worse than death. Yes, even if she dies, I won't let her die cleanly. Rolling on nail beds, suffering branding irons, cutting off ears and fingers, thrown into a snake pit, 72 tortures spanning 5 underground floors. I wonder which floor Meng Xueru can endure to. The grievance of Meng Jin must be repaid with blood through those descending layers of torture. Zhu Huan couldn't bear to let the child she had raised in her arms see such a scene. She dropped her dignified and composed mask, begging bitterly. But I had already taken a step back. How could Shin Chong force me further? If he kept protecting him like that, with such a spineless demeanor, you only deserve to roll off to your fief and cultivate wasteland. If you have time to kneel and beg me, you might as well teach your worthless son properly. After all, Zhu Huan is his first wife, and has always been deeply respected by Shin Chong. For the first time, she was reprimanded with harsh words, losing all face. How would she dare to risk further trouble? The third prince was still sent to the Dali temple by the emperor. I've vented some anger for you. Are you satisfied now? Shin Chong glared at me, with a cold face. With deep displeasure furrowing his brows, I leaned in and pushed him down onto the table. Like the 15-year-old Yun Tang, I sat on him without regard for seniority. Although not very satisfied, you protected me. I also want to satisfy you. Yun Tang's little tricks, I played them just right, 5 parts similar, yet not fully satisfying, always making Shin Chong content. Yet he always fell just short. He seemed to have gotten what he wanted, but that little gap gnawed at his heart, making him think of me, of Yun Tang, all the more. In just 3 days, the usually spirited third prince fell ill. It was only to be expected, watching his beloved have her index finger sliced off and skin peeled away right before his eyes, until she became a bloody mess of bones, and then reaching out to him with blood still dripping, crying out for Brother Chen to save her. How could a prince raised in a hothouse not be terrified? Yet, when Meng Shueru died, she shouted to the third prince, "If I can't be with you in life, I'll stay by your side in death." With her being such a bloody and gory sight, the third prince's legs went weak. He immediately ordered her remains to be ground to ashes and thrown into the river to end it all. But even so, the third prince came down with a high fever, and 3 shifts of imperial physicians were summoned. The physicians said it was from excessive fright, damaging his spirit. No one knew that the knife used to cut Meng Shueru that night had been poisoned. When the third prince held her, he was infected. In his terror and unstable state of mind, it would all just cause hallucinations. Everything was precisely calculated by me, without a single mistake. While he was suspicious all day long, I never forgot his mother. Because that day, the palace attendants derelict in their duty allowed the prince into the inner chamber. I killed several of Zhu Kei's informants in one go. When the blood-stained register was sent to Zhu Kei, I heard she was so angry her face turned green. Her displeasure made me happy. That very night, I ordered Meng Shueru's bloodied clothes from her torture to be sent to the Marquis's mansion. The Marquis's mansion longed for their daughter, so I granted them something to remember her by. I heard the Marquis's wife was so furious she vomited blood, and the household, now a public laughingstock, fell into chaos. Sitting cross-legged and eating melon seeds, Shin Chong kept sighing. "My son is so useless. It's more shameful to me than death itself," he said. I signaled, and this remark spread throughout the palace, especially in Weiyang Palace, where it was heard the most. Zhu Kei once again hid in Weiyang Palace and threw a huge tantrum. A junior concubine who came to pay respects was forced to kneel as punishment on some pretext because she wore a red rose. The empress, who appeared virtuous and magnanimous in public, was beginning to show her true colors. That was just a greeting gift. The real drama was yet to come. Shin Chong desperately sought the shadow of Yun Tang in me, clinging to the fearless spirit I carried. He practically lived in my Guanju palace. His favor, his partiality, his attention, all were given to me. But in the throes of passion, as he bit my earlobe, he called out Yun Tang. I grabbed his chin, forcing him to look clearly at the person right in front of him. "Your concubine is Consort Ru, the orphan Ru." He pressed his forehead against mine and chuckled wryly. "Indeed, how could she ever be as docile as you?" Zhu Huan dared to call her villain. She even dared to slap her in front of me. I am not that arrogant. The time I slapped Zhu Huan, she pointed at my bulging belly and smiled, tearing into me with her fangs. "You've killed countless people. I don't believe karma won't strike your son. So, what if I conceive? Whether I can carry it to term, how it will live after birth, who knows?" But the consequence of slapping her was that I was punished by the empress to kneel for half a day, and I miscarried. It was only much later that I learned, on that day when she pranced before me, her body was already laced with blood-activating herbs. From the very start, she was set on making me miscarry. My son died in her schemes, so her son will never live in peace. No matter how tightly she protected him, in the end, he was destroyed by my hands. I traced Shin Chong's sharp brows and eyes, but I couldn't find the shadow of his former self. Where had she gone? Shin Chong's body stiffened, and he subtly withdrew his hand from under my pillow. Turning around, he said indifferently, "It's late, go to sleep." I couldn't sleep. I missed my younger brother. When Shin Chong rushed to the emperor's rescue with my secret letter, I was surrounded by Zhu Huan's elder brother's troops in the manor. Zhu Huan pressed my hidden younger brother in front of him, forcing me to surrender. "Rebel, you die or he dies. Choose one." The Yun family was wronged, the entire household destroyed, leaving only me and my brother. I bled and fought for Shin Chong. First, to one day seek justice for the Yun family. Second, for my younger brother to live well. He was only 7, just 3 years older than Shin Yuchen, while Shin Yuchen was cherished like the apple of their eye. When he didn't know what hardship meant, he set his ambition to fight tooth and nail for the Yun family's vindication, to study tirelessly and pass the imperial exams, to support me, his elder sister. Even when he became a prisoner under Zhu Huan's blade, he told me without fear, "Elder sister, you've done enough for me and the Yun family. If you don't leave, I won't live on alone." Zhu Huan's elder brother stepped on my younger brother's back. The sound of bones breaking nearly tore me apart. "If she leaves, I'll flay you alive and hang you on the city wall for all to see." Seeing that I was slow to drop the knife in my hand, my younger brother's hands, bound behind his back, were twisted and broken by him. A 7-year-old child, pale with agony, still forced to smile at me and said, "Elder sister, it doesn't hurt. I'm a man. I can take it." Crack. His leg, trained in martial arts, was stomped and broken. Just as Zhu Huan's blade was about to pierce my younger brother's eye, I dropped the knife. But a sharp sword, at the same time, pierced through my chest from behind. It was the sister I had protected all along. That person is now still in the imperial palace, silently enjoying her wealth and glory. Her life, too, should be returned to me. In my 2nd month in the palace, the autumn banquet was held. Shin Chong held my hand and seated me beside him. Zhu Huan forced herself to maintain an air of pride. She had long been gnashing her teeth in hatred. While Shin Chong drank with the ministers, I secretly switched his wine for water, then provocatively touched my lower belly. I was pregnant. Zhu Huan's hand gripping her wine cup turned white. After 3 rounds of drinks, I volunteered to take a walk. Shin Chong only told me to take care of myself. I patted the knife on my waist. With him around, don't worry. The long unopened Xianfu Palace had its door opened. The reclusive consort Jin, who seldom left her quarters, was already waiting under the moonlight. When she saw me, she rushed over. "Are they still alive? What exactly do you want?" I coldly brushed her hand away. "Kneel." Her face stiffened as she met my icy expression. After a long moment, she weakly knelt down. "Greetings, lady." I didn't tell her to rise. Sitting loftily before her, I remarked, "This Xianfu Palace isn't as grand as your former courtyard. What, has Zhu Huan treated you poorly?" She twisted the corner of her mouth bitterly. "I am merely a pawn. Without a child to rely on, this is already the best outcome. What exactly do you want from me?" "I just want to know if my family is still alive." I did not answer a single word. Instead, I tossed down a packet of medicine. "Lately, visit the Empress's palace more often. We are all good sisters. Her precious son is so ill that he can't even get out of bed for the palace banquet. How could he be without your consolation?" Her gaze lingered on that packet of medicine for a long time, and finally, trembling, she grasped the path to death in her hands. "So, can you release my mother and younger brother now?" I got up and left. "You have no right to ask." With a weakness left in someone else's hands, what right did she have to bargain? Back then, only she had seen my younger brother's letter, the one who sold us out. Only her, Song Jinner. Blood must be paid with blood. What made her think she had the right to make conditions with me? From the moment I delivered the keepsakes of her mother and younger brother into her hands, it was destined that she would live in restless torment until her death, living in constant fear. On the way back to the palace banquet, I was blocked by Consort Chen. She smiled and looked at my face. "You look very much like an old acquaintance." I rolled my eyes. "Oh, I know. The day His Majesty asked me to be his consort, he said it outright, just to stand in for his white moonlight. Still, I am an honored consort, with no worries about food or clothing. What right do I have to be picky? Her face turned pale. The divisive words almost choked her. Now was the perfect opportunity for the second prince to make a name for himself. Shouldn't you seize the moment? The emperor is troubled that none of his sons can stand on their own. Such a great opportunity, once missed, will never come again. Compared to the queen's hypocrisy, I find your smile much more genuine. Consort Chen's eyes lit up. She gently took my hand. The third prince fell ill. The second prince made a triumphant appearance at court. His mother, whom I once adored, was delicate and gentle, with a faint smile always lingering. She would follow me, calling out, "Sister, sister." She was thoughtful, gentle, and obedient. Whenever I returned to the mansion covered in blood, she would always be waiting under the eaves, ready to help me wash and apply medicine. The two people I trusted most in the prince's mansion were Wan Xiong, whom I had trained myself, and Song Zhen'er, whom I had pulled from a pile of corpses. But in the end, Song Zhen'er traded my weakness for wealth and status, becoming the current Jinping. Wan Xiong stabbed me in the back to ensure the safety of mother and child, and was later granted the title of Qinfei. Neither of them will escape. Now the third prince is showing signs of decline. Chun Fei, who had endured in silence for years, finally showed her fangs with the information I gave her. At court, the second prince kept buying loyalty, suppressing the third prince. In the palace, Chun Fei openly made friends with me, catching the empress off guard. Thanks to your evidence, sister, Minister Zhu is now deeply entangled in a corruption case of forming cliques for private gain. It's hard for him to extricate himself. Even if he wanted to become the third prince's backer, he lacks the strength. Seeing that I didn't respond, she probed indirectly. But unfortunately, he was stubborn and didn't implicate the third prince. I gave her a sidelong glance. Whether there's solid evidence doesn't matter. The second prince understands the power of rumor. At worst, we just create the momentum. I remembered that today was the little girl's day to eat jerky, so I got up and headed toward the hall of prayer. Consort Chen's smile instantly faded, a snake-like chill clinging to my back. She wanted to use someone else's knife to kill, whose knife remained uncertain. The news of my pregnancy was kept tightly under wraps. Shin Chong guarded me layer upon layer, promising that both mother and child would be safe. I hid the smile at the corner of my mouth and echoed him, saying of course. But just a few days later, Consort Jin came to my palace for a cup of tea, and then I suffered a massive hemorrhage and collapsed on the ground. When Shin Chong arrived, that pool of blood lay before his eyes. He was probably reminded of the day Yun Tang miscarried. He too had been in a pool of blood like that. He had taken Yun Tang back, but lost the fully formed prince. When he held me in his arms, his body trembled, and he kept begging, "Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. I'm here. The imperial physician is coming. Hold on a little longer. I'll stay with you." I tried my best to mimic Yun Tang's expression when she was injured, touching his face, saying nothing, not even crying out in pain. Memories kept overlapping, probably becoming more profound. When I learned that I had been given a large dose of saffron, which had completely damaged my body and left me unable to bear children anymore. Shin Chong turned and stormed toward Zhu Huan's Weiyang palace. Even though Consort Jin clenched her teeth and refused to say a word, it wasn't hard to pry the truth out of the servants' mouths. Recently, the empress has been summoning our mistress to Weiyang Palace more frequently. Today, she called her in early for a private chat lasting 2 hours. Just before you arrived at Guanju Palace, the empress sent someone out of the palace saying, "Go in peace. I will handle everything. I beg your majesty to seek justice for our mistress." Consort Jin was very obedient, following every word of my instructions. Shun Chong kicked Consort Jin to the ground. "Are you a dog? I've never seen such loyalty from you. If you were so loyal, why did you betray you back then? You wretched woman. You don't deserve to live even in death." As Consort Jin was dragged away, she kept begging me for mercy. I knew what she was saying. She said she had done as I instructed, asking me to spare her mother and younger brother. But I no longer have a brother. How could she deserve to keep hers? After she was cast into the cold palace, I sent her a grand gift. She loved to play the zither, so I made a pipa from her mother's bones. She loved to beat the drum, so I made a little drum from her younger brother's skin. She went mad, screaming and cursing me, calling me heartless and inhuman. She cursed me for being untrustworthy and not worth regretting even in death. Mid-curse, I, cloaked in black, stood before her. You were drenched in blood after being fed that abortifacient, yet you still managed to come to me. You're so cruel, so cruel. I was never a kind person, and she hadn't just learned that today. Pulling her into my arms, I drew the hairpin from her head. Stab by stab, I slowly drained her of her strength, then dragged her a dozen yards and threw her down a dry well. Before I left, I told her a truth that would keep her eyes open in death. I am not Yun Tang's younger sister. Yun Tang never had a younger sister. So, guess why my swordsmanship and appearance are so like hers? She must have figured something out, desperately wanting to confirm, but in such a deep dry well, in such a desolate cold palace, even if she screamed until death, no one would hear. When I was being tortured to death, being cut flesh and broken bones bit by bit, my younger brother was watching with that same despair. He had tasted that kind of pain, and all those executioners should taste it too. Back then, Li Jin'er's mother was sold to a brothel and nearly died from the ravages on that bed. It was I who broke in and saved her. Back then, her younger brother was neither scholarly nor martial, and was even a slave born to a prostitute. I used the favor of taking a sword for Shun Chong to secure a position for him. But in the end, it was that mother and son who tricked my younger brother into coming to the capital with the false news that I was harmed. They have betrayed me, so they should pay back everything they owe me. In the past, the three of US joined forces, using all schemes and plots to take Yun Tang's life. But now, one has died in the cold palace, and the other two, after being driven apart, are fighting to the death. And I no longer have a weakness for others to exploit. This time will I still lose? When I returned to the palace, weary and exhausted, Shin Chong was sitting by the bed reading a book, while I was still covered in blood. He turned a blind eye, only gripping my icy hand in lingering fear. Your body can't stand the cold. Come here, I'll warm you up. He pulled me into his arms and held me tightly, intending to make up for another me through me. But neither version of me could feel happy, not even a little. The companionship Yun Tang had wanted back then. He kept it from her in the Zhuke courtyard and never gave it. Now, when I want rivers of blood, he also whitewashes the grave and refuses to grant it. I went and killed someone. She deserved to die. No need to ask who. It doesn't matter. It's not that killing doesn't matter, it's just that the person killed doesn't matter. I almost grew confused within his deep affection and protection, almost because the empress who started it all had been forgiven by him. He stripped her of the authority to co-manage the 6 palaces, confined her to Weiyang Palace to recuperate from illness, and considered that his way of venting for me. Wait till you're better. I shall make you a noble consort. Stop making a fuss, all right? A fuss? After Li Jin'er's body was discovered, I sent her blood-stained hairpin to Weiyang Palace as a gift for visiting the empress. I heard the hairpin still carried the stench of decay. The empress vomited all day and made a scene in front of Shinchong, so he came to placate me. I didn't answer. With a snap, I cut off a protruding branch from the winter sweet. What if I insist that she pay with her life for my survival? Meng Jin. He was reminding me that I am Meng Jin, a useless person in the Marquis's manor with no prospects. Everything I have now was given by him. I should be obedient and docile, letting myself be manipulated. In this warm March spring, I feel a chill. Did she also die at her hands? Is this how you protected her too? My blunt words choked Shin Chong so much he could hardly breathe. I have important matters today. I'll come see you tomorrow. Whenever Yun Tang was mentioned, he would evade. Because he felt guilty, because he was afraid, because he couldn't face it. They said she drove her to death. Shun Chong's back stiffened, and his fierce gaze fell on my face. But I was fearless. Wasn't one death enough? Must you kill me too? Or did you never love her and never feel moved by me?
How dare you?
It was the first time he was so enraged that he didn't hesitate to slap me. I've spoiled you too much, making you forget your place. Who do you think you are? Just a plaything I raised. From today, you will rest well in the palace and go nowhere. He loves my freedom and arrogance, yet hates that I'm not obedient enough. Just like Yun Tang back then. He loved that Yun Tang gave everything for him, yet thought Yun Tang's hands were stained with blood, too vicious. So he favored Zhu Huan's dignity, Wan Qiong's amiability, and Song Jin'er's obedience. Thus, he tortured Yun Tang's heart 1,000 times. In fact, he only ever loved himself. I dropped the scissors, watching Shin Chong's resolute back, and was silent for a moment. I handed you the knife time and again. I gave you a chance to make amends, but you didn't want it. In the future, you cannot blame me. I was left stranded in Guanju Palace, and for many days I did not see Shin Chong's face. Everyone says that Consort Ru was too domineering, displeasing the Empress, and now she has lost favor. Consort Ru lost favor. The Empress fell ill. The happiest one is Consort Chen, who gained the power to assist in managing the 6 palaces. Her son, holding evidence of the third prince's corruption and bribery, looked triumphant in the court. One after another, ministers submitted memorials against the third prince, disappointing Shen Chong to the core. Finally, he stripped the third prince of his real power, ordering him to rest and recuperate. Zhu Huan, upon hearing the news, spat blood and, frail and ill, begged for an audience with Shin Chong. That day, I flew a kite in the courtyard, a soaring eagle, so lifelike it seemed real. Dancing above the palace as if alive, Shin Chong stopped outside the Weiyang Palace and watched for a long time. When he entered, he had a fierce quarrel with the Empress. That eagle was a birthday gift that my younger brother had once shot down and given to Shin Chong. He had been reminded of my brother. He also remembered my brother saying, "Elder sister has nothing. Only you and me. She can risk her life for us, so we should protect her with ours." My brother did that, but he did not. That was a hidden pain in his heart, and the Empress had just rubbed salt in his wound. Naturally, they could not save their precious son. The Marquis' mansion, ostracized by the noble families, seeing my downfall, began to take advantage of the situation. The Marquis sent a letter to me, commanding with feigned pity, "Claim your ancestry as soon as possible. For your father's sake, send a collateral daughter of the Meng family into the palace to secure your favor. The child born from her shall be raised by your side. Then you will have support. Only by clinging to the emperor's favor can you and the Meng family have a better future." Like a grasshopper at autumn's end, it still dares to hop. Since they courted death right at my doorstep, I naturally spared no effort to help him along. Seeing that the Empress and Consort Chen had become complete enemies, I no longer needed to hide. So, that letter ended up on Shin Chong's desk. What emperor would allow his bed and his heirs to be manipulated by his ministers? Especially when his favored consort, once fallen, was reduced to a state where anyone could bully her. Overnight, the Meng family was implicated in a rebellion case of the previous dynasty. Confiscation of property and exile happened in the blink of an eye. See, if the emperor wanted to stand up for you, it would be a mere wave of his hand. Only he doesn't wish to. Shin Chong remembered my isolated and helpless plight again. After freezing me out for a month, he came to see me again. "Having learned your lesson, you need to learn to be more obedient." My knife had been taken away, so I could only pick at my nails. "Wasn't it you who said you liked the wildness and untamed spirit in me?" Seeing that I could still bicker with him, his anger dissipated. "The palace isn't a place for fighting and killing. There are many ways to protect yourself. I will give them to you, but you must be obedient." I pouted. "Unless you compensate me with a child."
"What's so hard about that?"
Right by the Empress Dowager's side, there happened to be a ready-made one, a sickly prince, frail as a cat, who was brought before me. He timidly hid behind others, not showing the slightest trace of a prince's bearing. The nanny repeatedly begged forgiveness. "Forgive me, your highness. The fourth prince is weak and somewhat cowardly. This child's mother died when he was born. He had been raised by the Empress Dowager, but she was often away from the palace, so he ended up in Zhu Huan's care. For 10 months out of the year, 8 were spent nursing illnesses. But at least he was still alive. And at least he had fallen into my hands." I rose with a smile, a gentleness I had never shown before on my face. Come closer, let me have a good look. What does my son look like?" To bear a child for Shin Chong, Meng Jin's body wasn't suitable. And I wasn't foolish enough to hand over my weak point to him. Besides, I couldn't wait any longer. Using one that was already available suited me just fine. Without a noble family background, I only had Shin Chong. He didn't guard against me. As for my son, whom I gained for nothing, he naturally had the best teachers and accommodations. He had a fine residence. Even Shin Chong, while accompanying me, would often play chess and paint with the well-behaved Shin Yuran, and occasionally they would plant flowers together for me. As my position rose higher and higher, my son gradually came to the fore. Consort Chen could no longer sit idly by. The second prince grew increasingly close to the ministers, even showing signs of wanting to wipe out the third prince completely. What's more, he egged on the officials to pressure Xin Chong into naming an heir. The emperor was in the prime of his life, and being coerced by his son into naming a crown prince early had already crossed a taboo line. Yet, he insistently seized upon a trivial matter to file a memorial against my son. Consort Chen had schemed meticulously for her son, but just one step away from success, it all came to an abrupt halt. The second prince was found guilty of forming cliques for selfish gain, harming his own brothers, and harboring malicious intent. He was exiled to his fief. Without an imperial summons, he was not allowed to enter the capital. All of this, from the moment I urged Consort Chen to let the second prince show his face, had been a predetermined outcome. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. Those ministers who had been solely focused on climbing the ranks now smelled the change in the wind and came to show me their goodwill. I ignored them all, only casually bringing up the former brave and loyal Marquis manner while the ministers' wives were having tea, saying that perhaps his daughter was unlucky and had severed the bonds of kinship with them. Combined with my actions in the Marquis manner before returning to the palace, someone soon discerned my intentions. The young master of the Meng family could not bear the hardship of exile and actually jumped into the river. His corpse fed the fish, and only a skeleton was recovered. The elderly mourning the young. Master Meng could not bear it. He fell and became paralyzed in bed, unable to move. Madame Meng now works like an old slave, busy day and night, yet cannot even earn a single meal to fill her stomach. Alone and isolated, unable to see the end of the sea of suffering, truly miserable to the extreme. They also remembered that they still had a daughter, and with repentance, they inquired about her from others. Others sneered and replied to her, "The emperor's favored consort. How dare you inquire about her? Die off that sycophantic notion early." I was again drawing meat jerky, the best and most fragrant jerky. My son asked me, "Mother consort, does it still hurt?" I touched my chest, no more pain. Meng Jin, she no longer hurts. The one in pain is Yun Tang. But unexpectedly, someone used my cruelty and unfilial behavior as a weapon against me. When I was titled Imperial Noble Consort, the censors impeached me for being unworthy of the position. Shun Chong flew into a rage, but I advised him, "Imperial Noble Consort or not, I don't care. As long as I have you and Ranner, that's enough." But is it really enough? Consort Chen arrived with a smile, followed by the long-absent empress. The two women, both with sons as dejected as stray dogs, joined forces again. Is Consort Ru truly a daughter of the Meng family? She struck straight at the heart. "Of course not," I replied bluntly. Their faces darkened. I continued, "I am an orphan, didn't you know?" Consort Chen still wore that bodhisattva-like face, yet she brought out evidence to sentence me to death. But this all proves you are not an orphan, but the descendant of a disgraced official, a member of the Yun family. Shun Chong squeezed my hand until it ached. Suspicion flickered in her eyes. "Are you the descendant of the Yun family's disgraced officials?" Zhu Huan sighed regretfully. Back then, the secondary consort was discovered to be a descendant of a disgraced official, and she couldn't escape, so she jumped into Weiyang Lake. Who would have thought she had such a beautiful younger sister? What a pity indeed. Though she said it was a pity, her face couldn't hide her smugness. Presumably, they thought that by joining forces again, they would leave me with no place to be buried. Where did this evidence come from? Consort Chen smiled faintly. The maid from Concubine Jin's palace sent it to me before she took her own life. All are solid proof that you, younger sister, instigated her to use the empress's hand to kill her own child. Do you have anything to say, younger sister? Shin Chong's brows were terrifyingly dark. I knew he was suppressing his anger, waiting for my explanation. So I spread out the letter and showed it to Shin Chong word by word. "Your Majesty, whose handwriting do you think this is?" Shin Chong's gaze narrowed, and he couldn't hold back anymore. He raised his hand and slapped Consort Chen hard across the face. The Empress was greatly shocked. "Your Majesty, you have struck the wrong person. It was Consort Ru who committed all the evil deeds." Shin Chong lowered his eyes to look at her, his gaze full of disappointment. "The Empress is unwell. You should return to the palace early to rest." "I'll pretend you never came today." After all, we were husband and wife, yet he still protects her at a time like this. But this was such a hard-won chance to take revenge on me. How could Zhu Huan be willing to let it go? She actually led a group of imperial consorts and knelt directly before Xincheng. As the empress, I have the duty to offer admonitions. Traitors and rebels are always by the sovereign's side. This is a threat to the great Chu Empire. For the sake of the empire and for your majesty, I beg your majesty to execute the orphan of the Yun family. Consort Chen also covered her face, tearfully echoing. Back then, Yun Tang died a disgraceful death. I fear the Yun family holds a grudge and harbors ulterior motives in staying by your majesty's side. It is a threat to the state. Back then, they conspired together to destroy Yun Tang. Xincheng had not witnessed it back then, but today he clearly saw their aggressive pressing against me. Meng Jin. If your majesty does not believe me, I have also brought the confessions of the Meng family members. That Meng Jin was timid and cowering, hardly daring to speak in front of others. How could she be as swift and ruthless as Imperial Consort Ru? The daughter of the Yun family merely wore Meng Jin's skin to beguile your majesty. I beg your majesty to think twice. The consorts of the 6 palaces knelt in perfect unison, pressing me to die. I lightly brushed my sleeves, unable to help but laugh at Xincheng. What now? Your death or mine? Everyone was taken aback, glaring at me with fury. Imperial Consort Ru, how dare you? The empress grew even more impatient. Your majesty, are you still going to indulge and protect her even now? What does the empress think I should do? A cold, faint smile tugged at the corners of Xincheng's impassive face. He flicked the hem of his robe and sat down on a stone stool. The empress gave me a sharp smile. A rebel and traitor should naturally be beheaded and displayed to the public. Xincheng nodded, as if seriously pondering, then waved his hand. Guards, take her away. Behead her and display the head. The empress exchanged a glance with Consort Chen. Both wore smug, triumphant smiles, but in the next moment, Eunuch Wu's men seized Consort Chen instead. Consort Chen's face filled with shock, her ever-present gentle smile. Full of panic, she cried, "How dare you? You should be arresting Consort Ru, not me." The empress was also bewildered. Your majesty, what is the meaning of this? Xincheng looked down at them from above. As if watching clowns, he said, Consort Chen just claimed those letters were delivered to her by Jinbin's maidservant before she took her own life. The handwriting matched Consort Ru's perfectly, and based on that, she presented it as solid evidence of Consort Ru's treason. But Consort Chen didn't know that during the years Consort Ru was lost outside the Marquis' estate, she never learned to read, let alone write. All were shocked, and the empress quickly tried to cover up. Consort Ru's paintings and calligraphy have been circulated. How can you say she can't write? Your majesty, you haven't been deceived by her, have you? Xincheng showed disgust toward Zhu Huan for the first time. Because that is my genuine handwriting. They were struck as if by lightning, frozen on the spot. It was then that I smiled and explained, His Majesty dotes on me. Knowing how difficult writing is for me, he tried to teach me but I couldn't learn, and he tried to guide me but I couldn't follow. Fearing I'd be laughed at for my lack of learning, he often used his left hand to scribble some mediocre poems for me to show off. Others wouldn't know, but Consort Chen frequently visited Guanju Palace, so taking away 2 calligraphy albums was naturally no trouble for her. But she didn't know that the handwriting wasn't mine, and naturally these letters weren't written by me either. A month ago, when Xincheng was practicing calligraphy again, he lost 2 copybooks. That day, only Consort Chen came to have tea with me. I smiled and said at the time, Probably Consort Chen and your majesty are of one mind, liking what his majesty likes, including his majesty's authentic works. Xincheng even teased me then, saying I was jealous. Consort Chen was terrified. No matter how she proclaimed her innocence, she could not change the outcome of being sent to the cold palace. The empress fell to the ground, also knowing that her situation was hopeless. Xincheng took my hand and walked past everyone back to Guanju Palace, not even glancing at the empress behind him. I was wrong. I shouldn't have been soft-hearted toward her. He held me in his arms, his body trembling slightly. I knew what he was thinking of. That day, Yun Tang's death, everyone was reticent about it. Only left a phrase, jumped into Weiyang Lake and drowned. Yun Tang was afraid of water, deathly afraid. If they hadn't pressed her so hard, she would never have jumped into the lake water. But he didn't know that. What is more terrifying than drowning is that in the 7 levels of the dungeon, I endured one level after another until the 5th, then finally breathed my last. From beginning to end, my younger brother was forced to witness me being skinned and my tendons cut. The deep pain surged up again, but he was only seeking solace from me. You protected me today, and that's good enough. He held me tighter and tighter. He could have protected me, but he never protected Yun Tang. He was in inconsolable grief, filled with guilt, but in the end, he lacked the courage and determination to pursue the matter for anyone's sake. Once again, I was utterly disappointed. In truth, he couldn't protect me either. From beginning to end, I protected myself. The letter from Consort Jin was real, a deliberate clue I had left behind. Forging Shin Chong's handwriting, Meng Jin certainly couldn't, but Yun Tang definitely could. After Consort Chen's sudden death, the second prince was immediately exiled to his fief, stripped of everything, and rendered insignificant. The third prince lost the support of the Zhu family, and the ailing empress couldn't help him either. He could only lie low. As the noble consort, I became the true victor of the harem. During a break, I went to see Consort Chen. She sat under the corridor with disheveled hair, glaring at me with malice. I clamped her jaw, coldly speaking, "I won't kill you. Don't be afraid. Because I want you to worry every day about your son far away in his fief, constantly guessing and fearing that one day he will die by my hand, just like my brother, without a complete corpse. It's terrifying when people have weaknesses." Even Consort Chen, that vicious and ruthless woman, knelt on the ground repeatedly kowtowing and admitting her faults. "Don't think about killing yourself either. If you die, I'll send your son to accompany you right after. You know I won't let him die easily." She broke down crying, hysterically begging, but I walked away without looking back, a cruel smile of satisfaction on my face. Let this fear and terror torment her daily like a knife, making her unable to live or die. It seems I've won, but not yet. When I took the fourth prince to see the Empress Dowager, she fingered her prayer beads and sighed. "I, the Empress Dowager, have fulfilled everything I promised you. When will you deliver on what you promised me? The reason I could reach today, step by step smoothly, is largely due to your Majesty's silent support behind the scenes." Even the shattered soul of Meng Jin was also reassembled by her, after she begged the abbot of the Temple of National Protection to help me. I am not an ungrateful person. I handed a letter to the Empress Dowager. "One last time, I trouble your Majesty." On the way back to the palace, the fourth prince asked me, "Mother, there are many sons in the palace. Why did you choose me, the least capable one?" The harsh sun made my eyes sting. I held back my sobs and said, "Because you and I are fated." But he didn't know that my bones, which had been struck by the soul-calming pearl, were meant to fall into Weiyang Lake. It was her mother, that concubine forced into the prince's mansion by the Empress Dowager and always at odds with me, who secretly swapped me out, burying me outside the mass grave and planting a peach tree beside it as a marker. If he is willing to risk everything to seek justice and avenge you, I will bring him to find you. The peach tree is proof. But Shun Chong, for the sake of power, for the sake of the crown prince position he had just secured and to avoid gossip in his harem, he suppressed my death and the grievances of the Yun family. No one came to me. I knew long ago that I had been abandoned by him. "Consort, come here. I have made a painting for you. Take a look." Shin Chong's eyes were filled with affection as he reached out to me from afar. I smiled and took his hand. The person in the painting had a face as beautiful as a peach blossom. With a faint smile that wasn't quite a smile, there was a hint of pride and chill. It was me, yet not me. "I have only you now. You must accompany me until our hair turns white." The sunset glow blazed like fire, reflecting in his eyes until they were red. He seemed so sincere. So my reply was also sincere. "All right." But in less than half a month, when the National Preceptor declared that I was an evil spirit possessing Meng Jin, he hid behind the National Preceptor without hesitation. Whether it's true or not, let the National Preceptor go through the motions. I will be at ease, and you will be at ease too. The Empress, who had been bedridden for a long time, stood beside Shin Chong, staring at me darkly. Using a lip movement that only the two of us could understand, she indicated to me, "You are about to die at my hands once again." This so-called national preceptor had placed a soul-fixing pearl on my bones 15 years ago. 15 years later, I was summoned again to be utterly destroyed in both body and spirit. But, Zhu Huan, a person doesn't stumble in the same place twice. With a faint smile, I nodded at Shenchong. Yes, like this we can all rest easy. The national preceptor's talisman was affixed to my body, and the five-flavor true fire passed through my face. I felt pain, burning pain. Yet I kept a smile as I looked at Shenchong. He even dared not meet my eyes, overcome by guilt. Looking back on this life, my greatest mistake was to seek warmth with Shenchong, who was equally helpless when I was at my most vulnerable. I risked my life for him, yet he didn't even have the courage to speak up for me. My poor brother, his corpse sunk in the river, never to reunite with me. The lengthy procedure came to an end. The empress was once again greatly shocked. How can this be? I collapsed to the ground, exhausted from a day of torment, and looked at her with a stern expression. What else should happen? As your majesty said, should I have spat blood and died on the spot? As soon as I finished speaking, Shenchong, his face pale, violently spat out a mouthful of blood and instantly collapsed to the ground. Meanwhile, the white jade containing Meng Jin's remnant soul in my bosom quivered exactly once. Excellent. Using the dragon's true qi to reshape Meng Jin's soul. How dare you, a wicked Taoist, plot against the emperor? Seize him. The empress dowager arrived in haste, followed by the real national preceptor. The empress used the wicked Taoist's hand to take the emperor's life. The empress dowager immediately confined her to the cold palace. That was my scheme, killing two birds with one stone, using force to counter force. It allowed both the empress dowager and me to get what we wanted. Shenchong's face was ashen. He lay on the bed, unable to speak. I knew he was at his last breath, so I told him a story. The wicked Taoist who borrowed your dragon's true qi had once driven a soul-suppressing nail into Yun Tang's bones over a decade ago. Yun Tang died but didn't die completely, becoming a lonely ghost, waiting eagerly for her husband to come for her. But later, the one who came for her was a young girl named Meng Jin. Shenchong's eyes went wide. Guess why he dared to stake his head to help me take your life? Because if I offered a blood sacrifice, he would suffer backlash and his soul would scatter. In this world, only when the slap lands on your own face do you truly feel the pain. I don't want anyone's regret. I want them to truly feel the pain on their own bodies, including Shenchong. Shenchong stared at me, his expression so complicated. How does it feel to die at the hands of the legitimate wife you most respected from a noble family? It must be quite painful, don't you think? Do you know how much pain I felt when I learned of your repeated betrayals? How much pain I felt when you abandoned me time and again? Shenchong's eyes were bloodshot, fixed on me without blinking. Are you looking at Meng Jin or Yun Tang? It doesn't matter. They are all me, just you are not worthy of either. The Empress Dowager will take good care of you. After all, she raised you for so many years. And you personally caused her biological son's death. She hates you more than anyone. The Empire? The Empire is what you love most.
Give it to my son, for
half of it was won with my help. You managed half, so let me manage the other half. After I got up and left, I never looked back at him again. As for Zhu Huan in the cold palace, I visited her the most. Every time I went, I brought gifts, either for her father who plotted schemes or for her brother who backed her up, and finally that mother who sent her the abortifacient that caused my son to die. For each person, just as her brother had done to me back then, I made them go through every one of the 72 cruel tortures, one by one, not ending until they breathed their last. At first, Zhu Huan was full of hatred, weeping and screaming, wishing she could fight me to the death. Then came fear, submission, and tearful pleas of surrender. I didn't accept, so I continued to humiliate her. In the end, she was driven mad. She tried to snatch a knife to kill herself, but the guard stopped her. Every day, she had to be well taken care of. Whoever dared to let her die, I would exterminate their entire clan. In the cold palace, her family members were buried, keeping her company day after day. Zhu Huan could neither die nor truly live, just like the one hanging on the peach blossom tree was me. Day by day, I endured. My great revenge was achieved, and my son became the new emperor. He treated me with great respect. At my hint, he overturned the case for the Yun family. There were no more worries. I the youngest empress dowager, am blessed with endless fortune. I host one palace banquet after another. People say I cannot bear solitude and love extravagant feasts most of all. I paid them no heed and continued to go my own way, until at a palace banquet I saw the pregnant wife of the Rongen Marquis heir. I could not help but show a delighted expression. The Rongen Marquis title passes down through generations. Their family tradition is extremely upright. Unless they have trouble producing heirs, they generally do not take concubines. The heir and his wife are childhood sweethearts deeply in love. Though the child is only 5 months along, they have already prepared everything he will need for his entire life. One can see how pampered the child will be. A family like this is truly excellent. Little wife of the Rongen family, come here. I see you are auspicious and want to reward you with a trinket. The young lady glanced at the heir, and under his reassuring gaze, she slowly walked up to me. I took out a piece of white jade I had kept hidden for a long time and pressed it into her hand. To be used as a pregnancy aid, wear it on your person every day. She accepted it with a smile and thanked me for the favor. Watching her gradually walk away, I thought of the girl who once ate dried meat with me under the peach blossom tree. I've found you a good family for your next life. You must be happy.